Okay, hello class. You're going to mostly be able to see my hands on this one. I needed to set it on the stand so that I could have both hands free to demonstrate some things for you. So the first question I would like to offer is why does a drummer like me need to be able to play piano? And admittedly, any of you in the class who might be real piano players, you're going to notice that I'm not a professional pianist. My technique is not very good. I have to stop every once in a while to be able to reset my hands, things like that pianists don't have to do. But the reason that I need to be able to do this is, well, there are two reasons mainly. The first one is when I want to analyze music, like this Mozart piece that I showed you a little bit of it last time when we played the scale from this piece. We're discussing this in our music theory class. And if I want to be able to learn from what Mozart composed, then I need to be able to hear, at least I need to be able to hear it at a slow pace of what his harmonies sounded like, what chords he chose, and how he put the music together. So I would not play that on stage for people, but for me to be able to hear, okay, this is an A minor chord, and that's what the fifth, these are jargon, you don't have to know this jargon, but I need to be able to hear which notes he's choosing in the melody to go along with the chord that he chose down here. And then how does he get, when he changes chords in the second bar, what this chord is a nice thick dissonant, we're going to talk about dissonant in a minute, but it's this thick mixture of sounds, and how did he do that, and why is that, there's something unique about this one compared to other times when this particular chord is used. And I need to learn from what he did to make that thick dissonant sound, that dark clutter. It's a beautiful sound. Especially with it's a very dark way to put the notes together. And if I want to be able to use that in my own compositions, then I need to study what Mozart did and look at it and be able to hear it while I'm breaking apart all the notes in the score. And this is, you can see some of my pencil markings on here. These pencil markings are me notating like what Mozart did and giving me kind of a shorthand about how to study what he did and how to make sense of all these black dots on the page. So that's what music theory class teaches, and we talked a little about music theory class in the last lesson. So the other thing that I do with the piano as a drummer, the other reason that I need to use the piano is when I'm composing, this is the most comfortable, most efficient way for a musician to be able to hear lots of different parts of the piano all put together. If I want to hear, for instance, I'm composing a piece for an ensemble that I play in right now, and I want to be able to hear what the chord sounds like with the bass line that I'm going to tell the bass player to play. I'm never going to have to play those lines, but which is, you could see that I had to stop at one point to reset my hands. But just being able to play it like that gives me a sense of what it's going to sound like when I give it to the whole ensemble. And this can be done with computers. There are a number of computer applications that I can make play stuff back to me, but it's kind of cumbersome. And being able to sit down and figure out, well, this particular group of notes maybe I don't like, so I'm going to try a different grouping right here. try different sounds and maybe try another note in there. That's a little too confusing sounding. So it's a little laboratory for me, and the fact that I can not perform piano, but the fact that I can like use it as a tool in my own musical development is a very valuable part of any musician's toolbox. And this is, for this reason, we require all music students to take 4 semesters of class piano, where in a group, all music majors, they learn how to use the piano as a tool. And it's a wonderful cultural icon. The fact that pianos are so ubiquitous in our culture gives us a really helpful tool for composing music. And if I'm in a hotel, there's usually a piano in the hotel that I can sit and practice on if I need to sound out some idea that came to me in a dream or whatever. That doesn't usually happen to me, but it could someday. Okay, so now we're going to get away from talking about just the piano. We're going to talk about more composition and harmony in specific today. Harmony, the definition of harmony, and I'll have some written notes that will accompany this, so these notes will be, you'll probably look at those first actually. Harmony, the definition of harmony is the rules that we use to make collections of notes and which collections can follow what other collections. It's just the set of rules that tell us how to combine notes as musicians. And we generally talk about chords. Chords are groups of notes. So all these chords belong in one key. You might see that all the notes I'm playing are from the white key scale, the C scale. I start with a C chord, an F chord, C chord, a G chord, and a C chord. And because these notes are all from the C scale, they allow me to play, check out, like if I want to play, let's say I want to play my Twinkle Twinkle Little Star melody. This gives me a way to test out what chords, and maybe I want to try a different chord. Maybe I'll try this. I don't like the sound of that chord as well, so I'll go back to the original. That was the alphabet song. You can tell by the rhythm. So maybe another thing I might try with that same, I played the melody for you in minor, so the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in minor, it has a very creepy sound to it. So I bet you've never heard that in minor before. But like again, you can see the piano as a tool gives me a sense of if I wanted to compose a melody like that for my band, how would it sound and what chords in minor, maybe the chords in minor need to be tweaked a little bit. So this is where I would solve those problems. So this brings us to, I'm not going to get into details of how to build chords. Essentially the rule is if you want to make a C chord, you're going to take every other note out of the C scale. So if I want a C major chord, I play the C major scale and I play the first note, the third note, and the fifth note. And those 3 notes together, C, E, and G, give me a C chord. That is not going to be on any of your tests. But that's just kind of a basic thumb line of how chords are built. And they change depending on, that's a major chord. I can make a minor chord by changing just the 3rd note. And I can change the 5th note to get a diminished chord. I can go back to major, I can make it an augmented chord. these different qualities come from shifting around those three elements of the chord. And then when we have a seventh chord, we add another note up on top. And we have all different varieties, or 5 different varieties of seventh chords that are commonly used. Again, none of that's going to be on your test. What will be on your test is this next concept, which is dissonance and consonance. And we have 2 types of chords. All of the music, virtually all of the music that you're going to hear in our culture, whether it's Beethoven symphony, or a hip-hop album, or a rock and roll album, country music, jazz music, it is largely based on the alternation between dissonance and consonance. So dissonant intervals, as I think we talked about in the science lesson last week, dissonant intervals are intervals that clash when you hear them. You can make them clash even harder by getting groups of notes. And consonant intervals are the ones that don't clash. So players, improvisers need to know, composers need to know which notes are going to clash and which ones are going to sound nice together. And that there are a lot of gray areas in between. There are no groups of notes that are always nice or always clashing. It's a matter of context. But when you compose, for instance, back to our example, these are all consonant sounds. Here's a dissonant. There's some clashing inside that chord. Consonant, dissonant, consonant. And that basic function, we have a tonic, and we have a dominant, which has the clashing in it, which resolves to the tonic. Clash, resolve. Clear, nice and pretty sound. And that's basically how our music is built. Almost all the music in our culture is built on this alternation between dissonant and consonant. You could think of it as consonant is the home. So your home, you don't stay at home all the time because that would be boring. So we go away to a dissonant place. This is the vacation. And then you come back home. And there are other ways to get some other color in there. All those different chords are just moving. Maybe you're on vacation, you go to Hong Kong, you go to London, you go to Brazil, and then you come back home. So those different chords work that same way. I can go away to the 3 chord, which has one sound to it. I can go to the 6 chord, the 2 chord, I can go to the 5 chord, and then I can come right back home. And that sense of home, away, home is just the way we build most of our music in our culture. An interesting thing about this, so that's all major and minor, all the stuff I was just showing you, which, as I said, is most of our music. 20th century music, if you listen to maybe horror movies, you'll get sounds that you can't make in major and minor. Sometimes they might use those other those other scales that I showed you, like the octatonic scale. Here's some music that's kind of octatonic. this is octatonic music. It's not, it can be pretty, octatonic stuff. This has a lot of dissonance in it, but it's a kind of a pretty sound, especially when you... But then it can go back to that sound pretty quickly, just from alternating. The other thing about, in our first unit, when we're talking about the philosophy of music, let me stop here and I'll put this in a separate video. We'll be right back.